Hello, everybody. I just figured I got some time to kill before I go fishing. There's danger in your. Oh, this is a conversation between Ptahotep, Ptahotep, Hotep, Ptahotep, and her father. And her father says, "There's danger in your finding self-control boring. Just remember, if even for a second you do not keep your will directed towards your favorite lion, and if he attacks you in this weak moment, you're lost. The low self is just as much an animal in its nature as a lion is. We must keep both of them under constant control. Then they serve us with their gigantic strength. Always pay attention. In our race, known as sons of God, it is not considered important at all whether we have been on earth for a long time or only a short time, or whether a spirit is living here on earth in a still undeveloped body as a child, or in a developed body as an adult. This question of size and age is only considered important among the sons of men, who are so closely tied to their bodies and identify themselves with their physical instrument to such an extent that they completely forget their true nature as spirit independent of time and place. The sons of men believe that someone can actually be small or large, but the members of our race, the sons of God, even keep their spiritual consciousness when they are born into their bodies. They never forget that only the body can be a child or an adult, and that the spirit is as always remains the same. It is neither big nor small, neither young nor old, for spirit is independent of the world, of time and space. But this conversation takes place, and it's obviously about God and the sons of men and the sons of God, meaning the initiate. And initiation means becoming conscious. You are now conscious to a degree corresponding to the resistance of your nerves and body. When a person becomes conscious to a higher spiritual degree, he automatically guides higher, stronger, more penetrating powers into his body. For this reason, he must always raise the level of resistance of his nerves and body to achieve the supreme, divinely creative degree of consciousness, while at the same time increasing the resistance of the nerves to the supreme degree in order to be able to endure this divine condition without harm to the body. That's what initiation means. Initiation also entails omnipotence and omniscience. To become conscious of divinely creative forces on the lowest level of the scale of manifestations means to experience physical love. And he goes on to say that you must experience this so you're not forever enduring after it. So that's the carnal love. And but I wanted to point out a couple of different things in this, and I'll leave the link for this so everybody can read it. It's a pretty good read. It's entails our cycles of Earth, our cycles of consciousness, the zodiac as it compares and corresponds as above so below with our minds. What's up, Gerald? How you doing, buddy? Glad you could join. Okay, there has Father, I ask, is our country the country of sons of God? And then it goes on to talk about Atlantis and how the black magicians, or the dark magic, destroyed their city, just like the tale of Atlantis. And then wherever sons of God disembark their ships, a great high civilization, whether they are still ruling, they are leading the people. What's up, Elsie? How you doing, sweetheart? And they created a high civilization wherever they are still ruling. They are leading the people in unselfish love and making a sacrifice for their benefit. The sacrifice of remaining here on earth for a time. Good, I'm glad you're doing good. In leading people in unselfish love and making a sacrifice for their benefit. And that's remaining here on earth for a time in order to teach them and propagate spiritual powers. There was once a time when the ruler, the Pharaoh, was simultaneously the high priest. What's up, man? But that's, the Pharaoh was the high priest as well, in one with the same person. He was the earthly and spiritual leader of the people. Later, however, as the country grew greater, good, I'm glad. As the country grew greater through culture and wealth, the sons of God divided up tasks. And ever since then, one of them has fulfilled the duties of worldly government, while the eldest, the leader of the race, has been the spiritual leader of the people. The Pharaoh rules the country, the high priest rules the temple, and does the duties in the temple. Now you know why the people we are ruling and teaching have differently shaped heads from those of the descendants of sons of God, who are now the reigning family. And this is where the elongated skulls come in. It says, they were talking about how, the sons of God had the elongated skulls. This means that we are able to, and then it tells about their powers, the shifting of their consciousness, and the freedom of space and time. They can, travel with their consciousness through time, because time is omnipotent, omnipresent, dimensionless. Time is, like Phil talks about how heaven is a dimensionless plane, zero dimension. And, okay, now, this is important. After we have thought over our worldly task, we shift over to our consciousness into the dimensionless state of all consciousness in order to draw new vital energy from the eternal divine original source. In this condition, we are one with all living creatures, with the entire universe, identical with it in divine primordial union, one with life itself. Like in Braveheart, where they said the nobles could bang all the girls. Okay. Who with two and with all other people, only these beings who with their consciousness are still living in 3 dimensions are not aware of this union. On the other hand, every creature awakens from the sleep with renewed vital energy. Whether or not it knows that this energy comes from the divine original source is to be said. If you pour out a drop from a glass of red wine into a glass of white wine, the red wine in the glass remains pure red wine as it was before. The white wine is no longer pure white wine, but a mixture of both. And this talks about how the sons of God interbred with the daughters of men. And it talks about how the blood, the spiritual essence was left within humans. Okay? And it talks about from the time a body is born, that is, from the time a self dwells in it, the body develops a power of resistance corresponding to the average degree of consciousness of the spirit dwelling in it. That means it depends on how far along the path you are, whether or not you're going to raise your vibration or be in a low vibration. The degree of consciousness of a living creature fluctuates up and down depending on its emotional condition within the limits of an octave of vibrations. These fluctuations, however, must not exceed, what's up, turtle? Must not exceed the limits of elasticity of the nerves, for if they do, injuries and sickness of a more or less serious nature occur, even death. The vibration belonging to the creative vital energy is absolutely lethal to creatures whose consciousness has not yet reached this level. It will burn out the nerves and nervous centers. For this reason, vital energy from the spirit column, where it has its seat, is transformed into low vibration corresponding to the degree of consciousness, ding dong juice man, of the person concerned, and only this transformed vital current is conducted into the body. Thus, animals, for example, are animated by a much lower life vibration than primitive man. And primitive man with his beast-like selfish nature is animated by lower vibrations of vital energy than a person who is spiritually developed. Okay, so we go on to that. As I tried to concentrate only on the meaning of the sentence, I could think of it, okay, right here. The means that one must slowly and cautiously prepare and awaken the appropriate nerve centers and learn to control them. As I tried to concentrate only on the meaning of the sentence, I couldn't think of it anymore, and the whole inner process moved out of my head and into my breast. This is Ptahotep speaking, the daughter of the Pharaoh. And so that I wasn't thinking it anymore, but feeling and experiencing it. The moment I concentrated on the meaning of the sentence without words, I myself became this meaning. What's up, Shockwave? Became this meaning. But then the sentence has to read differently. Not I always manifest divinely, but much more accurately, I am divinity, which is always manifesting itself. All concentration begins with the intellectual phase. You direct your thoughts to the object of your concentration and consider what this object actually is. In this stage, you are using your intellect because you want to clarify your thoughts and seek a completely satisfactory definition, expressing fully and clearly the object of your concentration. As soon as you find that definition, your intellectual work is done. For you know now what this thing is. You don't need to reflect on it anymore. For when you know what something is, you don't cogitate about it anymore. Thinking is the bridge between ignorance and knowledge. When we know everything like God, we will have no further need for thinking. God is omniscient. He himself is knowledge, and his knowledge is as perfect as a circle. What should he think about when he knows everything? Only the person who is obliged to expand his knowledge needs to think. This work of expanding knowledge consists of thinking. When your knowledge concerning the object of your concentration is complete, and it goes on to this is the three-step process. I just want to do an overview of this so everybody can realize that there's actual substance to this. Knowledge is not wisdom. No, it is not. Knowledge is just a bridge between wisdom and ignorance, right? Just like thought is the bridge between ignorance and wisdom. Wisdom is the fruit of the tree of knowledge. It's funny you say that because there is a there is a bunch of that talks about the tree of knowledge in here. Okay, a person doesn't think about what he is, nor does he feel it, simply because he is what he is. He doesn't need to speak about it. Everything he thinks, says, and does is the expression of what he is, the manifestation of his own being. Now comes the most difficult task of all. Concentrate on yourself. This is how you find yourself, and I'm not going to read all that. I just wanted to go on to the... that talks about the three phases of concentration and how you can meditate on yourself and become unified with your true self. You achieve complete identification with your own true self until you really are yourself. It is your task to reach the state of being which can only be described in the first person as I am that I am. But watch out. It's not enough for you to think what you are, nor to feel what you are. You must be what you are in your own true inner self. When I have progressed to the point where I have pretty well mastered the art of keeping silence, I stand before Ptahotep again one evening, and he asks me, I guess Ptahotep is the pharaoh, not the daughter. Sorry. What have you learned during your struggles to keep silent? Have you only learned the art of keeping silence? No, Father. That was simply impossible. While I was struggling with silence, I simultaneously had to struggle with speech. To the same extent that I have mastered silence, I have also mastered speech. This is because silence means not talking, and talking means not keeping silent. I wasn't able to separate these two things. I've discovered that silence and speech are two different sides of the same unit, like the two sides of a coin. and that's the first step to unify the two ends of the bookshelf, like hot and cold, up and down, you know what I mean? Right and left, duality, yes. And that's the seemingly the opposite states are just different degrees of the same condition. Okay, nothing I reply, and that could I draw on it. Okay, and then they're talking about everything from nothing. Right here they're talking about everything now says okay, wait. No, Father, that was simply impossible. While I was struggling with silence, okay, it talks about, okay. Now, then he gets up and leads me to one of the great white stone blocks of which the wall and the room are made. Pointing to the smooth white surface of the stone, he asks, "What do you see on this white surface?" "Nothing," I reply. "And what could I draw on it?" "Everything now," says Ptahotep. This nothing, therefore, contains everything. In this condition, both together form a perfect unity. Within this unity, something can only become recognizable if it becomes separate and distinct from unity. That's what we are. We are separate from our true selves, so we can identify what perfection is. So we can define it and find our true self, which is God, in the imperfect state of manifestation. And remember something very important. Yes, that's right, P. Turtle. That's what this says, yep. Everything is from a complementary color. Okay, you can achieve knowledge only through comparing the two sides, positive and negative, which have become separated from each other. As long as these two sides are together, resting in each other, you can't perceive or recognize anything. Observe the visible world. It is only recognizable because it has separated itself from the unity in which the nothing and everything are still at rest within each other. That's the yin and the yang. In other words, it has separated itself from the absolute unity we call God. The things in the world about us are only recognizable because the positive appears separately from the negative, and we can compare the two together. There can be no perception unless unity is split into two halves. One of them manifested and the other its reflection, and complementary half unmanifested, so that both become recognizable through comparison. This is the string theory, the spooky action at a distance. Yes, it's knowing our egos too. Yes, it's one and the same. It's the what blew my mind about this is that they're talking about like this right here about the figurine and a large table and two lamps, and how the colors, and it explains how color is divine, whatever. But I mean, it's exactly what you just said right there. How our ego is our shadow self, but it's necessary. They had a lot of time to examine, study, etc. Yes, this is, and so you see the separation is really one in appearance only, because the two complementary halves, even when they are separated and have fallen out, this is where the fallen comes from, where the fallen angels are, and have fallen out of all unity, can never get away from each other. Inseparable divine unity therefore manifests itself always and everywhere. For even in this seeming separation, it continues to be active everywhere as the ever-present attractive force between positive and negative. Both positive and negative tend to return to their original state, divine unity. Even though something appears in the visible world, it cannot split itself off permanently from the divine unity. Sometime sooner or later, it will unite with the complementary half and return to the divine unity, the inherent force dwelling in everything that exists and drawing everything created from back into the original unity, that what we call God. And what we call God is the Big Bang itself, the energy of everything. That's what God is, guys. That is the state of nothing and everything all at once. God is personable to us because we are that energy. We are singularities of that energy and of that singular state, right? All creation, the visible world about us, is like a tree. On the right side, it bears positive, good fruit, and the left, negative, bad fruit. But both sides belong to the same tree and come from the same unity. Both good and evil have arisen only through separation from unity, with which itself is neither good nor evil but divine. Only through separation is it possible to achieve recognition and knowledge. Consequently, the recognizable world must consist of good and evil. If there were not so, if this were not so, it would not be recognizable and could not exist at all. This harkens back to the maxim or axiom: man only exists on that which resists, so earth must resist man, else he existeth not. Right? The entire creation is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but the Creator, God, is not a half which has fallen out of unity, become separated from it, and consequently recognizable. On the contrary, God is unity itself. It is the whole condition. Within it is the duality. He stands above all created forms which have fallen out of unity, right within himself. He has perfect unity. He is nothing out of which everything arises and manifests itself. But in him, the nothing and everything make up non-separated divine unity. Creation always means a half of the whole, the half which has fallen out of unity and which has become recognizable through comparisons. Yes, but we are all connected. What? But we are all connected as infinite creator consciousness individualized. Yes. That will be a false God. What are you talking about? Man, I wish I had a doobie. It's what Zionism is building the third temple to house of God in. It's a metaphor for the AI control structure. That's impossible, Thoth. In my opinion, I think it's impossible. What's up, Mary? How are you? Y'all should really be listening unless you plan to read this later. Right? Sorry. While in complementary your my opinion and your facts of evidence, huh? But you can only be God. Okay, while its complementary half has remained behind unmanifested, that's but the AI thing I think is impossible. For tyranny is dealt with on its own. Darn it. I was just getting going too. God has no complementary half with which he could be compared. There is absolutely no possibility of comparing him, and so there is no possibility of recognizing him. You can only be God. Listen, my child, there is only one eternal being, only one God. In every alive thing there lives only one single being. There lives this one single God. There lives one single God. God is the indivisible unity. He is present everywhere. He fills the entire universe. The whole universe lives because God animates it with his own eternal being. Hence, God is like a tree of life, giving its own being to the created, recognizable world that has become separated from its complementary half. In other words, giving life to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This tree of the knowledge of good and evil, our created world, is only alive because the tree of life, God, instills his own life in its veins, lives in it. The material world is like a tree of death. The tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the God dwelling within it, is the tree of life, living in everything that is created. God is one and only one. The one single God is the self, the innermost being within all creatures. God is everywhere present, and since two things can't occupy the same space at the same time, and nothing can displace God from any place in the universe, only one and the same God can be present everywhere as the self in every created form. God is indivisible unity. All creatures, all plants, animals, man himself, and all fruits on the tree of knowledge of good and evil, all are alive because the vital flow from the tree of life streams through their veins. That is because the tree of life lives within them. And that means in you too, little daughter. Your body is also a fruit on the tree of death and on the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and has no life of its own. But within you there lives the tree of life, because your self is also a little branch on God's great tree of life. And you are only alive because God is living as yourself within you and your body, keeping your person alive. By virtue of having been born into your body, you have become a recognizable being. You have separated your consciousness from the great all and nothing from God, from which your own true self. You have fallen out of divine paradisical original state in which all possibilities of manifestation, including all plants, animals, and man himself, are still within the all-embracing unity, into the world of many forms and differentiations. You have become a manifestation, a created form. Consequently, everything you are here on the earthly plane is only the recognizable half of unity, made up of good and evil. And since your consciousness has been placed in your body, you have awakened in this body. That is, your consciousness has become identical with the body. So that's your ego, taking over your body, and you can, and it talks about we're all creators, so yes, we consist of the same life force. We aren't and never were separate. Well, we are separated. We are separated from, yes, DNA, Berkman current in a different living form. The lion, wolf, lamb, to tame the eagle, I assume, to lay down and stop fighting. Yes. Okay, I'll go down. Right here, it talks about what happens when you do, this has been described by Phil and Yvonne to us. Even while your body remains in the visible world of the created, you can merge your consciousness with your own true self, out of which you have fallen, because we're the fallen angels, thus forming the perfect unity. In this way, right here in this earthly existence, you can experience bliss, experience God, be God. This striving for reunion is in everything that has been created. Every creature seeks its complementary half in order to reunite with it. The positive male force seeks the negative female forms, and vice versa. This is why we strive to fill the void with something, because it's the unity with our true self is what we're lacking, what we're missing, and this is the basis of sexual power. It's what it says right here, and right here it says, this tendency on the part of the positive negative force, even without this tendency for this striving towards unity, towards the state of being, God makes up the attractive power between positive and negative forces. And the whole world is built on this striving to attain the divine primordial state. This striving itself is the source of all power in the manifested world. Nature uses it and projected into the body. It is the basis of sexual power. As long as a creature seeks its complementary half outside itself in the created recognizable world, it will never find unity. And that's what we're doing. We're always looking and grabbing at, we're consumers, we're creatures of wrath, and we just keep filling the void with nothing that will ever fill the void. We eat, we do drugs, we are codependent on other partners, on people, and this is the fight we must have. Yes, this is the fight we must have. This is the hero's journey. Through this union, which takes place in your consciousness, the eternal longing of your manifested being ceases because it has found its complementary half and merged into unity with it. And for this reason, the sexual desires of your body also ceases once and for all. You become complete within yourself. Right here in the physical existence, you experience the divine state, immortality, bliss, fulfillment. And as much as the same one individual being lives in all creatures, you simultaneously become identical with the true self and every creature when you awaken within your own true self. You will achieve unity with God and simultaneously unity with the entire universe. You will lift your consciousness out of your body, out of the personal being, and experience all-inclusive cosmic consciousness. You will feel yourself as the I, the self in every creature, in the entire universe, in God. This means you will again be eating of the fruit of the tree of life. Then you will have moved out of the world of effects into the world of causes, out of the realm of transitory into the realm of eternal, out of the created into the creative, out of the realm of death into the realm of life. In short, you will have achieved your resurrection in eternal being, and that is initiation. Hi, Leslie. How are you? And here are the 12 opposite sets of opposite characteristics are keeping silent, talking, receptivity, resistance to influence, obeying, ruling, humility, self-confidence, lightning like speed, circumspection, to accept everything, to be able to differentiate, ability to fight, peace, caution, courage, to possess nothing, to command everything, to have no ties, loyalty, contempt for death, regard for life, indifference, and love. The earth is now going through a long period in which body-dominated and self-seeking people will gradually take over the ruling power. And remember, this conversation took place 2,500 years ago or something like that. But you already know that wherever negative forces are manifest, positive forces must also be present, although in the unmanifested state. During this dark period of earth, the sons of God who manifest the divine laws of selflessness will gradually abandon the earthly plane, withdrawing to a spiritual plane of the unmanifested. Nevertheless, they will continue to work in the human subconscious, as they can actually will be the unconscious of humanity and will manifest themselves in the souls of maturing people as yearning for liberation and salvation. Is that not what we're doing? On earth, the megalomania of certain individuals, together with the growing dissatisfaction of the enslaved masses, will lead to bitter and ever bitterer struggles throughout thousands of years. Many millennia of constant struggling and bickering, and the supremacy of avarice, vanity, envy, vengefulness, hate, and other animal characteristics would eradicate from the face of the earth everything that is good and true and beautiful, were it not for divine providence and a group of spiritually united people, under the guidance of the sons of God working on the spiritual plane, who will save our secret knowledge from sliding into oblivion. So right there answers the AI problem situation, because divine providence will not allow it. And I'm not just grasping at straws, because the natural law is law out of chaos, or order out of chaos. I understand this. So the chaos ensues, but the law, the natural law, overruns it, because not for the natural law, we would have been done in long ago, right? The earth, like every other planet, is under the guidance of a high spiritual power, and this power manifests itself through the sons of God in a manner appropriate for the people concerned. It is manifested through a group of initiated people who, through their development, have become peers of the sons of God. They are all co-workers in the great divine plan of saving the earth from darkness, isolation, and the rule of material and diabolical forces. Every initiate takes part in this work, and as you are to be initiated, this means you too. In order to be a useful co-worker in this great plan, one must first master the whole scale of the sets of opposites. And you too, for your initiation, will have to pass an examination in them. Mastering these attributes means that you use them and at the right time and in the right place. The same attribute that is divine at the right time in the right place is satanically evil at the wrong time and in the wrong place. This is because God creates only what is good, beautiful, and true. There are no bad characteristics as such, and no bad forces, but only wrongly used characteristics and wrongly applied forces. You've already found out what it means to speak or to keep silent at the right time and in the right place. To keep silent is perfectly divine and brings blessings on all concerned, if we do so where and when we should. And it goes on to say that if you keep silent when somebody is about to die, and you could save them with your word, then that's satanic. And it goes on. It is your duty to in the great divine plan to give absolute obedience to God's will. The latter, that's your inner voice, your true inner voice, not your ego saying, I'm pissed off because I feel like you've walked on me, or you've belittled me, or, and I've done that a lot in my life. Humility is what we must feel towards the divine, towards the higher self, which animates us. What's up, Paula? What are you guys talking about? In order for that to happen, it would have to be programmed for it to be so. Our higher selves are ready to help humanity against the dark ones. Yes. Yes, it will help you understand duality, because in the black side of the yin is the white side in the center. In each side of the yin and yang symbol is the very opposite in the middle of each one. We are our higher true self. Yes, in essence, in unity we are. Yeah, in divine unity we are. When we come to the mountain, right? AI, what about AI? AI will learn itself, and it truly thinks. Nothing is completely good or completely evil. Correct. This goes on. This talks about all of the divine, the dual opposites. Unifying. Because this is the thought experiment that Phil first told me to do, was unifying the dual opposites. And that was the biggest thing he told me to do, was do that. You do that, and you're that much closer to unity. Hey Tina, how are you? You should look at the string about AI, Steve. It was pretty funny. What are you guys talking about? I wouldn't worry about AI. What are you guys talking about AI here? Who's to say AI won't turn to love? That's awesome. We could train it to turn to... Okay, that's what you're talking about. I got you. Awesome. That'd be sweet. Yeah. But the waves of force keep radiating out. Okay, the degree of development reached by the people in different nations at any given time will vary greatly, and reincarnated sons of God will consequently receive widely varying kinds of treatment. In some countries where people are most interested in divine truth, the sons of God will be recognized, heard, and honored. But the waves of force keep radiating outward till they reach their utmost material limits. There will also be times in the darkest periods of the earthly life when the materialism, hate, envy, fear, and terror reign. And in such times, too, the sons of God have returned to earth, and and be very badly treated. Ignorant people obsessed by a passion for power will torture and kill the sons of God. Nevertheless, he will go through with this sacrifice, thus radiating tremendous spiritual force. The spirit in people will awaken and vanquish the darkness of their soul. Little by little, the face of the earth will be completely changed. From the utmost material limits, the waves of creative force will flow back again. Listen to this, guys. Ushering in a new period of upward development. People will have more and more opportunity to cooperate with the sons of God, in the great divine plan for the salvation of the earth. And as time goes on, they will manifest more and more spirituality. Then masses of individuals will be reincarnated who once were incarnate in the divine race, but who either could not pass their tests for initiation and died during initiation, or later fell after having become initiates. They will again be conscious of the knowledge they once had. And while people will still be killing each other in some parts of the earth, there will be a constantly growing group of people receiving and transmitting the radiations of the sons of God and preparing the new life of the Spirit. The people descended from the lower race will also gradually climb to higher levels. At first, they will only be able to grasp with their intellect, and they are capable of better things, and that they could live much more happily on earth without killing and enslaving each other. The higher humanity climbs, the more materialism and passion for possessions will lose their grip on people's lives. Little by little, the passion for conquest and power will decline. And instead of using their strength to fight each other, people will use the abilities to harness the force of nature. In a way, they will discover step by step that they don't need to earn their bread through dull, difficult drudgery, that they don't need to water the earth with the sweat of their brow, and that by activating their higher nerve centers, they can command the forces of nature. Thus, the earth will gradually come back under the dominion of higher waves of force, and people will not only be able to understand with their intellect, but also to experience and realize the highest divine truths in the way high civilizations will develop again. This is the ebb and flow of the Dark Ages, the Renaissance, the Dark Ages, As long as a person identifies himself with matter, with the earth, his consciousness is linked to the earth in a state of identity. He is earth. Consequently, when his body loses its usefulness and dies, he dies too. That is, his consciousness ceases and falls into a latent state. That's what people call death. But the situation is just the opposite with a spiritually reawakened person who stands above matter during his physical life. For him, the fact of being born into a body is death, whereas the death of the body means his awakening, resurrection, life. When people cease to identify themselves with their body, or to express the matter symbolically, when they cease to eat of the fruits of the tree of knowledge and of good and evil, manifesting only the right half of the true tree of knowledge and leaving the left half of the tree in the unmanifested state, they will live in a paradisical state in themselves as children of the earth. This is the stage of development humanity must reach. It will be a long struggle until the earth reaches this plane of existence, but spiritual forces gradually penetrate even into the most isolated heart, and in the course of further thousands of years, the earth will again be transformed into the promised land sometime in a far distant future. The salvation of the earth will be accomplished. Only through the experiences to be gained through several reincarnations can these fallen sons of God climb back to their original level of divinity. And it says, through lots of pain and sorrow, yada, 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 and through long suffering and many sorrows, these fallen sons and daughters of God will be awakened from their material dream, rediscover their relationship with their lost brothers, and reacquire their lost cosmic consciousness. Then they too will work together with their brothers within the divine plan and proclaim divine truths on earth. Right. This is a trick of false information. What? Are you serious, Giant? Really? They are the weirdos and crazy people. What are you guys talking about? I think death is the end of us. We are like a broken computer that can't connect to the network any longer. But our experience live on in the mind of God. Sorry, but I wholeheartedly disagree. I think the sons of God are the genius, high IQ people. You are correct, Thoth. This is a trick of false information. Yes, I'm doing well, Sister Truth. Eat shit, pee, fart. We are here for a reason. We are here for a reason. And this is why we are here. To experience our true self. That's my opinion anyway. That's what this is saying too. You're right. We are here for a reason. People don't think they're animal-like. We are animal-like, big time. They will mate with all the things. This is a give-up mentality. What's a give-up mentality? I'm going to leave a link for this, and you guys got to read it yourself. Your imagination is absolutely right. If it doesn't show you a future picture of lions serving mankind, it's quite true. People won't be able to keep the friendships of these wonderful... Hang on. I don't see how you think it's a give-up mentality. But there's a reason why we are here, guys. I mean, if you're denying yourself that fact, then you will eventually come to the realization that we are here for this reason. Because, I mean, the first question we ask ourselves when... Yes, both of them. Yes. You cannot remove evil and have only good. It's not impossible. They define each other. If you try to wipe out, you're right. That's the contrast. Without one, you cannot have. That's what this talks about. The time is coming when the power of our country will no longer be based on knowledge and selfless love, but on cold, crude, brute force and good, and the good. The true and the beautiful will be shoved into the background. Then this zebra-like animal will play a great role in the life of the world. It is an obedient animal, and even if it isn't as strong as the lion, it has the advantage of willingly participating with people in their wars, something no other animal would do without becoming wild and dangerous itself. They're talking about the zebra. Okay, now this is these are the... And this is that staff that, right here, the staff that moved the pyramids and made messes with the natural vibration of things. Okay, I wanted to just read. God himself stands above all manifestations of life and rests in himself in absolute equilibrium without time and without space. But he is constantly radiating himself out into material forms in order to give these forms life. As God is omnipresent and fills the entire universe, everything that is in the universe is penetrated and filled by God. Nothing can exist without being in God and without God's penetrating it. And as God is everything, everywhere present, and nothing can displace or dislodge him from his own presence, consequently, every point offers a possibility that God may manifest himself through it, and everything that exists in our perceptible world carries this point, because we are all point source recognition. We are point source God. You know, its own center within itself. From this point, there began its first manifestation, its creation, its fall from equilibrium. This aspect of God who creates the material world and gives it life by penetrating it, that is the actual life. What does that say? Life, us, in all creatures we call the higher self. Expressions like God, creator, universal self, higher self, or the creative principle, all mean one thing and the same divinity in its various aspects. The energies radiating from the center are still highly spiritual in the center and of the highest frequency.